Welcome to a very exciting MXGP podcast show. I can hardly wait for what's to come over the next 90 minutes or so as round one of the 2026. I maybe got a bit enthusiastic, but I am enthusiastic because round one of the 2026 FIM Motocross World Championship is in the rear view mirror. The Grand Prix of Argentina, Bariloche, and so much happened. There is so much to get into, so I'm not even going to continue with this intro fluff. I'm just going to bring in Race 19's Adam Wheeler and get down to business. Are you as excited as me, Adam?
Excited, probably not the right word, Lewis, but I've just removed the humble pie from the oven and I'm ready for my first major big slice of 2026. So you'll be pleased. I can tell you're barely suppressing a smirk on the YouTube video. I just wonder when you want to bring it up.
In the interest of organization and correct structure, maybe we should go into the event first and then hit that as our first port of call with the on-track action. Fair?
Yeah, just draw out the blade slowly. Just don't twist it.
We'll wrap up the event or the location and whatnot as quickly as we can so we can get to your serving. Bariloche, of course, a brand new venue, Argentina's third MXGP location in the last decade as well. And honestly, these flyaway countries are hit and miss. Sometimes a country will have a hit and it will be followed by an immediate miss. It's really hard to find consistency when you leave Europe. And somehow Argentina continues to produce good MXGP tracks. And this one is perhaps the most surprising. It wasn't as good as Vialle, Angostura or Cordoba. Everyone said that both pre and post race. But that doesn't mean it wasn't still great. I think I don't know if I heard a negative comment. What about you?
Goodness, where to start? I think as we saw from the excellent, as usual, drone work from the MXGP TV production, it was in a very picturesque place. Apparently, pre-event, there was some worry that it wouldn't attract the fans, despite being right outside Bariloche, which is one of the biggest cities, down in Patagonia in southern Argentina. But you could see from the photos and also the TV images that there were fans there. The track looked very kind of American spec, a lot of 180 corners, quite open and fast. It also had that same Vialle Angostura terrain where it was sort of topsoil, a little bit loose, but also quite hard and bumpy and square-edged underneath. I think that's also quite typical of the new builds, Lewis, where you just don't know how the lines and the ruts and the bumps are going to develop. But I didn't think it was a bad circuit to start the championship, and for the first time ever, because it was constructed only a couple of months ago. Not too bad at all. And it had some fantastic weather on race day across the weekend. It was quite breezy, which didn't sort of come across so well on the TV, but that was also one of the comments I'd heard from riders and team personnel, that it was windy, and you could tell from the dust by the end of the second MXGP Moto. But Argentina just seems to be like a stable event to go to for the first one, considering how wretched the climate and the weather has been in Europe in the first 2 to 3 months of this year.
You mentioned it was, of course, a man-made build, not a ton of notice. The promoter, the local Argentine media, they did release spy shots of the circuit, and I'd love to go back and look at them now, because those photos didn't give a hint of just how good the elevation was or just how grand the circuit was in total. I think those spy photos did it a great disservice, and I think that ultimately played into the event's favour, because everyone was even more pleasantly surprised once wheels started to turn.
Yeah, and my 17-year-old son turned on the images or the TV app, the MXGP TV app, and said, wow, look at that nice sort of downhill section where the riders were coming into that sort of right-handed sweeper, if I remember correctly. So it had a little bit of wow factor. I haven't heard any sort of really bad comments about it. Sketchy seems to be the most used word, I think, in terms of description. And, do we ask questions over track prep? I'm not sure. I think Andrea Adamo was sort of saying post-race that, obviously making his MXGP debut on the Red Bull KTM, that was one of the roughest tracks that he's encountered, which it did look it by the end of the second motos on Sunday. But if you think of some of the rough tracks that we do have in MXGP, then it's quite something that Bariloche has kind of forged that reputation in its first hit.
I think it needed to be rough because being rough was the lesser of two evils, because if it wasn't that rough, it was a freeway, which was kind of what the riders were complaining about on Saturday. It was also difficult to get water in there. So I think ultimately that all culminated in probably a rougher circuit than the organisers imagined they would get with that soil. Because even Vialle Angostura had a lot of similar comments, sketchy, whatever else, but it never quite got that rough. The biggest telltale sign to me was the stereotypical roller out of turn one that MXGP loves with these man-made builds. The bumps, the acceleration bumps, braking bumps on top, I've never seen anything like it. It was so chattery. And in all of the times that this very stereotypical MXGP jump has been used, I've never seen it form like that.
Yeah. And also, I think it was I sent a message to Sean Simpson, the team manager of Gabriel SS24 KTM, and he remarked that on Sunday the track had been watered, comprehensively. I think to try and make it softer, make it more technical, because as you said, there were complaints on Saturday that it was difficult for overtaking. Lap times were similar. It was tough, really, for the riders to make much time because there was just not too much variation or possibilities. Whereas Sunday, there was much more margin for error, and that sort of produced some better racing. But I think, Lewis, also just the sheer pace of the track and the fact that it was quite slick made some riders also check themselves and think, right, this is the first of 19 rounds, a lot of racing still to go. Let's not go too crazy here.
Yeah, perhaps. Enough about the track and the venue, moving on?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, Adam. Wow.
Move on.
Honestly, I respect you. I think you're the best media person in two-wheeled motorsport, and everyone has a bad day.
But?
Well, you had your bad day, and I don't know. I don't know. You said in our preview show that Herlings wasn't going to win immediately, but more so than that, I want to harp on the fact that you said that in reply to my comments about him being a title contender or favourite, you said that we need a touch of realism and reality. So, what I'm asking you is, all of the hype coming off of Jeffrey Herlings' win, do we still need some realism and reality? Are we getting swept up too much? Or is the result the realism and reality that you so sought after?
I'm still confused. First, I'm going to completely buck out of your perceptive question, Lewis, by saying on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy were you with that result sheet on Sunday?
It's just cool, isn't it? It's just... Someone tweeted me and said, why does every Herlings win seem like the biggest deal ever, or it's talked about as the biggest deal ever? And I think my reply was incredibly accurate. It's because he rarely whole shots and wins, which means whenever Jeffrey Herlings wins a race, it's normally a barnstormer of a race, a la passing Febvre with 2, 3, 4 laps to go. That ultimately leaves you with positive reaction to the race you've just watched, and therefore the winner gets all of the accolades. Whereas when a rider whole shots and wins, which everyone else does a lot more than Jeffrey, you're almost a bit more like, it was a boring race. You've kind of lost a bit of enthusiasm. Whereas Herlings tends to bring the enthusiasm in the final 5 minutes, and it therefore spills over into post-race remarks.
I was surprised. He was that fast. He was that comfortable. And there were no mistakes, no misjudgments, no familiarization process still to be had with a brand new bike in MXGP. So a full sort of props to him for that, because he just showed again what an immense motorcycle racer he is. I actually thought on Saturday, when he made that slip and crashed and then had a bit of damage to the Honda, what did he get back to? 12th, I think, after being
12th.
Third. I actually thought, well, that's a little bit more what I was expecting. The speed was there because he was P1, of course, through time practice. But then, there just was that experimentation, if you like, at the limits. But then on Sunday, it was just like vintage Herlings. And the irony is that one of Jeffrey's Achilles heel throughout his career has been his starts. And a lot of riders on KTMs have been, fantastic, emphatic at their starts. I mean, if you could reel the names off: Max Nagel, Tony Cairoli, Jorge Prado, Tom Vialle. But maybe Jeffrey getting on an HRC, package the same as we've seen with like the Lawrence brothers in the US might be the final key that he needs to smooth that final rough edge out.
Honestly, the surprise to me wasn't the race result, it was the practice times. On a track that we just said was quite hard to make a difference, especially on Saturday, the free practice, time practice, and Sunday warm-up gap to the rest of the field was staggering. That was the headline grabber in my mind, and a true testament to where he's
Jeffrey's always been good
at.
at heater, isn't he? Jeffrey's always been pretty decent at that. It's kind of like he has this Mikel Pichon style ability just to home in and make that flying lap. I mean, if we didn't have qualifying races, I mean, how many pole positions would he have? He'd be a bit of a sort of Ayrton Senna when it comes to that.
I don't know, I don't feel as high on his ability in one lap. I guess he is. I don't know, I'd actually be really curious to see what the numbers are on that. Of course, Lommel and places like that, he's unbeatable on one lap in practice.
Yeah.
But actually, you know what? I may dig into that for the next show because I really don't know what that data would surmise. But
well, no, the word you use is reality, right? So then I went and had a look at all of his first GP results since he came into the MXGP class in 2017, because I thought, is there going to be some sort of pattern here? And one of the things about Jeffrey's career is that there's no pattern whatsoever. He has, when he's finished on the podium in the first GPs, he's not necessarily always gone on to win the championship, and he's only ever won the opening Grand Prix in MXGP twice in all that time. And it's there's no indication that this is going to be the start of a championship onslaught like we saw in 2018. If anything, I think this victory is a little bit like scoring a goal in the first 2 minutes of a cup final. He's now got 88 more minutes to go all the way through the rest of the season with this very high bar set that the Jeffrey Herlings HRC combination is a winning one and is going to stamp all over everybody else. But I'm just balancing two sides of the coin here, because it was, like I say, vintage Herlings. It was really good to watch. Especially the way sort of he hunted down Romain Febvre in that second race. It was like the bike looked kind of weird anyway through the TV picture, but it might have just well have been a Red Bull KTM instead of like a Red Blue Petronas monster Honda.
I think, harking on reality a little bit more, I think we were all wrong to doubt him, and I include myself in that category because I didn't have him on the podium at round one. But if you look at the numbers, when Herlings is healthy, this is what happens. And if not this, it's very close to this. So why would this have been any different? Ultimately, your takeaway from round one is, oh yeah, a healthy Herlings is near impossible to beat. Is that not just it? And are we not all idiotic for not arriving to that sooner?
Yeah, but he was healthy building into 2025, but wasn't really sort of controlling races like this until we got a bit further into the season.
No, not 20.
So it's really
24
hard to gauge.
You're thinking of, I think?
24? At the start of the season when he was coming back from knee injury.
Yes. That
was last year.
Well, last year he missed the first few rounds, didn't he? And then returned in Sardinia where he basically did one really fast lap, to your point, and then cruised around and made sure that he wasn't going to lose money due to an injury clause. 2024, he started slow, 8.4369. But I forget what, I feel like he did come into that season behind the 8 ball, and I forget why. Hard to keep track of the Herlings injury timeline, admittedly.
It does. And which seasons he's missed, and which season he got halfway through and then disappeared.
But speaking of the timeline, it is utterly staggering. I could have fallen off my chair when I realised that he has not had a red plate since 2021. It makes sense, but yeah.
Wow.
That is insane. You would have thought that there'd just be one there somewhere along the line. But then when you consider that he missed all of 22, he didn't start the 2025 season, so obviously at that point the red plate is never going to arrive.
He missed all of 2019 and he missed half of 2020.
Hold on a minute. Hold on. I don't. This was said on TV, but I don't know if it's true. No, yeah,
while
okay.
you're looking,
I was confused. I was confused because because he went 2-1 to start 2023, but I just remembered, and I was like, that surely would equal a red plate. But I just remembered that 2023 and 2024, 2023 is more so. Prado was controlling the red plate narrative with his qualifying races.
yeah.
You've got to remember those qualifying races, and I'll hold my hand up and say that when the qualifying race finished and it flashed up with the points that were awarded, I did go, oh yeah, I forgot we do this, because it completely escapes my mind.
But I mean, in terms of achievement, it's I mean, we obviously cannot base any predictions for the season on these results, but in terms of milestones, it's quite incredible, isn't it? I mean, 113 GP wins now. That's the first with another brand. And I'm struggling, Lewis, I mean, I think I looked it up. He needs nine more wins to equal what he achieved in MX2, with MXGP sort of Premier class victories. But can you remember another rider that sort of came into the Premier class straight off with another brand, another team, and won straight away? I can't really think of one. I'm trying to remember if Clement Desau didn't win straight away with Kawasaki after changing from Suzuki.
Nor did Paulin. That was where my mind first went, but I want to say he won quite early on.
I would like to look in 2010, I think, because Desau was riding a semi-private Honda by the end of that season, then switched to factory Suzuki.
Would it not
He might
count?
have won the first GP in 2010.
Caroli on a KTM counts, does it not? New manufacturer, immediate wins.
Would he have won the opening round of 2010?
I want to say Nagel won that, because from memory, I think Caroli had a subtle knee injury.
Right.
Yeah, Nagel
we have to
won.
look it up. On 2010,
Yes.
what was the first GP? It was
Bulgaria.
Like Volkswagen?
And then Caroli
Bulgaria.
won round 2, Mantova.
Okay. So Jeffrey's got another little what's the word?
I've got it. And I'm happy that I've got it, because I'm going to look it up as I talk, just to make sure that I don't put the cart in front of the horse. Sorry. Ready? Josh Coppins on Rinaldi Yamaha. Balkan Squad 2007.
Okay. So he changed from Cass Honda to Yamaha and won Volkswagen.
Yep.
Okay.
And I'm so happy that we've managed to give Josh his nod there.
And I think that was one of the rare sunny days at Volkswagen where he took that win.
A Herlings 1-1, a Josh Coppins nod. It's all coming up, Lewis. But the race was not without its issues for Herlings, of course. The crash in the qualifying race, he hinted in a press conference that there was some sort of slight mechanical issue. From what I've gathered from digging around a little bit, I think it was an electrical issue, which was then present in Vialle's bike in the second moto. I think that's why Vialle stalled it and lost the lead. Nothing major, of course, but just some sort of little gremlin there. And then, of course, we all saw pre-second moto restart his helmet debacle, which all seemed very stressful. I almost felt a little stressed on this side of the screen. A stone popped out the nose guard at the bottom of the chin bar, and he was trying to source a new one because the gap on the Bell helmet between the chin bar and the goggles is a little bigger than what he had previously with Aero, and I think he relies on that nose guard quite heavily, because looking at photos, he has a bigger nose guard than any other Bell rider. So I think he desperately doesn't want a broken nose. And truth be told, I can imagine there was a bit of panic, because if I need a spare nose guard, I don't even know if it's called a nose guard, but let's run with that. If you're struggling to understand, it's a detachable little bit of plastic that you stick on top of your chin bar. If I wanted a spare one of those, or another rider did, I don't know where you'd get one from. I don't think that's something that people carry and have at their disposal.
Well, they're likely to in the future. That's wonderful details there, Lewis. I didn't quite pick up on the nose guard thing. But the Grand Prix wasn't without the little problems. I mean, one reason why people might think, well, what on earth happened to Lucas Coenen? The firebrand from 2025, the runner-up, rider that I think many people tipped, including myself, to win in Argentina. He had some sort of issue with his right eye. I don't know if he had an impact from a stone or something inside his eye, but they tried to treat it and it just didn't get any better throughout Sunday. It got to the point where the Belgian said he was actually racing blind in the second moto. It might account for the slip that he made in Moto 1. And then again, like I mentioned earlier on, that slightly sort of measured approach to what was a pretty treacherous surface in the second race.
A lot of facial concerns and issues for round one, bizarrely. Quickly on that Herlings point, though, I do want to say the optics of him sat on the start line without a helmet on were bizarre. I don't know if we've ever really seen that. Like, surrounded by riders with helmets on, and then he's just sat there with his helmet on his bars. It all looked quite odd to me. And again,
well, especially because he's one of the riders that always comes to the gate with his helmet and goggles on. Like, don't talk to me, don't bother me. I mean, some riders put sort of headphones on and lock themselves out that way, but Jeffrey just comes fully armed and ready, usually a minute before the 2-minute warning sign goes up.
Yes, actually, and I really wish I had messaged someone at Honda, because that is Herling's MO. He arrives, I think when the 2-minute board goes up is too early almost. He literally arrives at the final second. And I'd like to know how ready Honda were for that, or if they were a little bit like, where is he? What are we doing? Is he coming? Like, what the hell? I'd imagine that getting used to that routine would take a little bit of getting time and whatever else, familiarity, because you're putting a lot of trust in him to show up when bikes have to start in 20 seconds and he's nowhere to be seen. It's quite contrast to other riders who sit there for 10 minutes plus. But yeah.
On the subject of kit, Lewis, what's your opinion on the gear, the look? I wasn't overly enamored with it.
The colours or the fit?
Well, I mean, not so much the fit. I don't think there's only so much you can tell from a TV. But yeah, the colours. It was. I didn't go. I mean, it was kind of like a diluted orange on top of what is already a mixed scheme with the Hondas, and the fact that sort of Fernandez and Vialle looked the same as well. It was quite hard to deduce the difference between them. Yeah, not the best. I think Längenfelder takes the award for the best looking gear. Probably closely followed by the Monster Energy Yamahas. Alpine Stars are just killing it at the moment with their designs of dirt bike gear.
Yeah, it must be said, it is Alpine Stars' world, and we're all just operating within it. I get it. It makes sense to me as a round one colorway. It fits the Honda quite nicely. It's a little bit unique. It stands out. But ultimately, yeah, not... The salmon look has never been one that really hits too hard, has it?
Yeah, there was not much punch to it. I didn't think it was a very good coordination. Being the sort of design experts that we both are, but we are entitled to our opinion, having watching it through a screen. And yeah, wasn't the best look.
It looks a bit baggy on both Jeffrey and Tom, I thought. No?
Oh.
Just the jersey, it looks like there's a lot of, like if podium photos even of Herlings, it looks like it sits quite loose in comparison to the Alpine Stars gear.
Maybe that's the trend now. After being super skin tight, these performance threads, perhaps they're moving a little bit in the other direction. We'll be full 90s soon.
Okay, before we move on, has any of your opinions on Herlings changed? Championship-wise, race-by-race-wise, whatever else?
Yeah, he's in it. But I do want to see how he handles the Honda in different conditions. What's it going to be like in mud? What's it going to be like in sand? And I will get answers to those questions very soon, because round 2 in Spain, you'd think it's going to be hard pack. We'll be into the deep sand. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, down in Andalusia.
Which would be a surprise. I don't fully trust it, but I've heard that more consistently than hard pack.
Well, let's hope we don't get the rains that blighted Cosa, in the last year or two. But then, of course, Rivalle with Sardinia, that's going to be sandy. Like I was kind of hinted at with my comment about, just achieving this result so early on in the season. Jeffrey has put that expectation now. So if he goes to a GP where he doesn't quite have the feeling with a Honda yet, then it might be viewed as a little bit of a disappointment. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, he's firmly in this thing. You can't go 1-1 at the opening round and not be in it, even though we have seen some freaky first race results in the past. Ruben Fernandez winning in Argentina, and Maxime Renault doing the same, last year. But yeah, this was, what an opening to a new chapter.
the biggest omen for what's coming, concern for competitors, is that first moto hole shot. Because Jeffrey Herlings doesn't hole shot from pole position, much less 12th gate pick. Genuinely, I couldn't believe my eyes, and I tweeted this, but the fact that Herlings was more enamoured with his black plate than his moto win said it all. And if that is going to be a trend, then that eliminates one of Jeffrey's greatest weaknesses, and I don't know how that looks for the competition. Couple that with the fact that consistently I've heard that he's better, he prefers this bike on hardpack. Couple that with the good starts. Somewhere like St. Jean, La Capelle, Montevarchi, Fox Hill, he should be much more effective than he's been in the past, and he's been pretty fast in the past. So I don't know. I think that's ominous for all involved.
What I've got two questions for you. You were kind of right in our preview podcast that we didn't mention much about Romain Febvre. And rightfully so. We perhaps didn't talk about him as much as we should have done, and he showed that in Argentina. But also, do we have to be a little bit surprised that Jeffrey's closest threat at the moment is coming from his teammate?
Yes, and I said this on LVK yesterday, and I'll repeat it here because I do believe it's true. Now that the GP is in the past, we are all saying or feeling, yeah, Tom Vialle's great. We know how good Tom Vialle is. Like, I feel like the surprise is starting to fade ever so slightly. But I'm trying to not forget how I felt in the moment on Saturday, and even after free practice, where he ranked second, some 1.2 seconds clear of Coenen in third. And I was bowled over. This was the most surprising development to me. I really have no idea where Tom Vialle is going from here, but what makes me excited is there's nothing about Bariloche that necessarily lent itself to Tom Vialle in my mind. Now, it was a little bit of an American-style track, so maybe his experience from past seasons has helped somewhat, but that in no way cancels out the change coming with a new bike, new class, and whatever else, new series to a degree. So if he's that good off the hop, then yeah, I don't know what's coming.
Well, I think I wrote on the Race 19 Substack at some point that Vialle for the third time is having to adapt to a new environment, and in both previous incidents or incidences, or instances even, if we can both talk, he's shown that he's a really, really fast learner, and he's open-minded and he's able to adapt. And again, he's proved that, I think, by jumping into the most high-profile factory team, you could say, with HRC. All the resources at hand, with a sort of titan teammate like Jeffrey Herlings. I thought it was fantastic, Lewis. I mean, what a ride and what a result. And it also made me think, when was the last time a rookie in the MXGP class took a podium finish and a result like that? And I actually had to go back and look quite a way. And it's, I don't know, maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time a rookie came in to MXGP and did better than Tom was 2016 when Tim Geyser won his very first race on a Honda in Qatar.
Yeah, so that was my first thought. It's also
I can't think of anyone else.
It's also quite good to have a rookie. I mean, we had Coenen last year, but we are still heavily reliant on the outgoing stars in the form of Herlings, Geyser, Febvre. So Vialle doing this off the hop really is a bit of reassurance, I think, for in front and MXGP and whatnot. Now, perhaps he and Coenen both end up back in America sometime soon. But at least for now, it is reassuring. Certainly, without doubt. And also, this all trickles back to when this move was first rumoured. We came on here and said it was a shrewd signing by Honda and also a wise decision by Vialle. And I think props to all involved. Honda for making the offer, Vialle for accepting it, because already I'm like, yeah, that was a brilliant career move. Because whilst I think he would have been competitive in 450 Supercross, who knows what his current position and future prospects would look like now in contrast to where they actually are.
And HRC having two authentic A-list riders. That's something that's also first for quite a while, I'd say.
Yeah, I was also trying to look into stats for this because we know that the second HRC seat has been a little bit cursed, if you want to call it that. Bobryshev was solid, but had injuries, was never too reliable. We all know what happened with Brian Bogers, and then Mitch Evans had his wrist injury.
And Rui Gonçalves, when he was Bobby's teammate, had injury problems too.
Yeah, so they've always relied on, well, it's essentially Tim. Now, they did have a double podium in China last year with Tim and Ruben. So they aren't too far dismissed from their last double dose of silverware. But still, I think they can expect it to happen much more frequently than it has in the past. And that actually brings me to a tweet that I made last night, which I know you love. A fan asked me to ask you on the podcast whether this should have been tweeted, because they felt it was another useless Lewis tweet, which you've now started as somewhat of a trend. And I thank you for that very much.
You have to keep relevant, Lewis. Go on, read it.
After Herlings' win, Tim Geyser is still responsible for 65% of Honda's 450 wins in MXGP. And 50% of their podiums as well. And I just put, I'm keen to see what these numbers look like after a season of number 84. I think that is quite telling, isn't it? To what it illustrates our previous point about Honda's lack of support outside of Tim, that he has really carried them on his shoulders. I think that was my point, no?
Well, yeah, but you needed also some more context, like how many years is that? How many races is that? And in relation, especially to Herlings' is 1 out of 1. And the fact that Tim's not on Honda anymore also renders the stat a little bit sort of defunct. I mean, if he was still there and they were like a powered duo, then it would be even more pertinent.
Well, it's a nod to the past and a nod to the fact that these numbers will not remain for much longer. I'm bidding au revoir to them, if you like.
Oh, okay.
Everyone,
well, I mean,
you know
Honda
what,
now have 7 world championships between them, plus 2, East Coast, West Coast, East Coast Supercross titles. There's no lineup in MXGP with a similar CV.
Everyone wants to say all I do is shit on Geyser. I do a tweet telling everyone how great he was, and now I'm getting shit for that. No one knows. No one knows. And no one knows just how good Tom Vialle will be. I think that is certain. There is actually a little bit... I thought you would like this. And I hope you will. But please be honest. And I'm kind of nervous to say it now, because it is a stat. And I think it's an interesting matchup. So Honda and Yamaha have done some trading places in this off-season, and all new lineups for both. And they are quite equal in their 450 class statistics. Yamaha has 80, Honda has 72. Moto wins, Yamaha is just 14 clear of Honda. Overall podiums, Yamaha is again...
What were the current riders?
Yeah, in total, 450 class.
Right. Okay.
Yamaha is again 14 clear of Honda in overall podiums. And I thought, you know what, that's quite interesting to follow across the season as to whether Honda closes the gap or Yamaha pulls away, and whether Honda ultimately overhauls Yamaha for number 2 in the MXGP class manufacturer history standings.
I think there's some... We perhaps haven't mentioned this much, but there's some serious bragging rights on the table for 2026. You know, who is the rider that adapts the most and takes the biggest share of the spoils? Because I think you could say quite fairly that Tim Geyser is a more decorated MXGP racer than Jeffrey Herlings. He has more titles. He had a length of time with HRC, over a decade just, and Jeffrey has more time with KTM. And Jeffrey, of course, has that GP wins record of 113. But Tim, has more consistency and more numbers on his CV on the 450. So, yeah, I mean, you could argue in terms of impact and profile and achievement or whatever else, they're quite sort of level. But it will be fascinating, I think, come the end of 2026 to see, well, who was the guy that managed to jumble everything up and then come out swinging again and still establish their class? I mean, if we base it on Argentina, there's no argument, because guys should just, while he rode strongly in the second moto to come back up to third, was it? Was he fourth overall?
Fourth overall.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's also a pretty solid start, I'd say, without being spectacular. At this moment, if someone said, look, here's €100 note, make a bet who's going to be making more points and be more consistent across the whole course of the season. I'll be more inclined to go with a 243 in blue.
Adam, what more do you want from us? We hold for
History.
all time.
History says this, Lewis. History says.
Yes, history says that me and Jeffrey together have the all-time GP win record.
Yeah, but how many? That's just it. Jeffrey is the fastest and most spectacular, Grand Prix rider I think I've ever seen. But
okay,
against Tim,
I'm going to make a
we could
bold
do a whole
bet.
podcast about that.
€100, and
Oh.
I'm putting myself on the back foot here. Honda are currently 8 GP wins behind Yamaha in MXGP class all-time numbers.
Yeah.
Honda passes Yamaha at the end of 2026.
Oh, 19 races to go. So they have to win. They have to win 9 of those 19.
Yep.
Well,
And rely on
Yamaha
Yamaha to not win much also.
I don't know. You're saying Honda, right? Not just Jeffrey. Yeah, that's. I
Honda.
mean, with Tom Vialle in there,
Exactly.
and even Ruben.
Exactly. And
But then again, it's 3 versus 2.
and also Honda are starting at the deficit of 8. So like you have favour in that respect.
Oh, that's an interesting bet. €100.
And the bet has come from an interesting stat. Yeah?
Yes. that
Okay,
is a
good.
stat.
Thank God. Speaking of class and history, I do want to give a nod recognition to Romain Febvre because yes, Herlings is going to steal headlines. Yes, Vialle equally is going to do the same. But I was really impressed with Febvre from free practice on. The results maybe don't show how good he was, which is weird to say with him in second overall, but there was nothing about his weekend that made me doubt his ability to be world champion again. And I think that's in stark contrast to what we were saying about him on our preview show. So I am encouraged, excited to see where he goes from here.
I wrote as well that it was pretty much a continuance of the high-level Romain Febvre we saw in 2025, in which he wasn't the fastest rider. He wasn't perhaps the most eye-catching rider, but he was still pegging his kind of base so high to be able to be runner-up overall. And he also made some comments afterwards by saying that he hasn't sorted out his settings for 2026. So he's still work in progress. So there's more margin there also.
Yeah, Jonass also said the same, that he was really happy, but once we do a couple more days of working, we'll be even better. So curious to know what it is the Kawasaki duo are working towards, whether it's similar. I don't know, but quite surprising considering we know how much Febvre loves the Kawi and how successful he's been on it recently for him to come out and say we've still got work to do. That caught me off guard a little bit. Perhaps it's a little bit of a defensive play. I got beat, but hey, it's only round 1.
Also, I'd love to know, and this is obviously one of the disadvantages of not being on the ground at the GP, what Kawasaki are doing in terms of development, because we know how much Honda are investing. We know that Yamaha have completely reorganized. We know that KTM have consolidated with a 4-man team and some very young riders. And we know also that Suzuki are sort of, working on a new 450 prototype. But what are Kawasaki doing? I mean, they have their Argios, of course, in the US. But when it comes to their MXGP program, it's perfectly reasonable to assume that they're developing and progressing and evolving, not only just as a product and a factory, but also as a race team. Let's not forget that Ice One haven't really been in Kawasaki colours for that long compared to their rivals in the paddock. So we can't assume that they're just going to be stunted and they're going to stop investing in their World Championship winning package.
New Kawi 450 in 2027. There were talks of them racing the prototype version in 26, but there was some sort of fundamental issue that stopped them getting the bikes in time and whatever else. So it was in the plan for them to be on a new bike, but it doesn't sound like it's going to be a massive overhaul in the same fashion of the Honda or whatever. But still, of course, new generation of bike, it will be substantial.
And also what I know of Febvre is that he's not going to be... he's not going to want new stuff. If he finds something that works for him, I think he's just going to be racing that. And unless he's completely out of the championship picture and Kawasaki say, listen, can we start work on the prototype now? Then I don't think we'll see it on the number 1.
No. No, I would think that once you make a decision on what you're starting with, that would remain. Unless, of course, the season goes completely off course and he has nothing to gain, and it's all just a building process for 2027, of which... Is he signed for 2027? I forget when his contract ends. He signed a new one recently, and I want to say it was multi-year.
No, I think it's just for 20. It's just for this year, and then he said he will reassess because he was also linked with Triumph, wasn't he? At some point in the beginning of 2025, even Ducati as well. But he had that extra year, and then I think I did an interview with him at the German GP last summer, and he was saying that he'll probably be more inclined to go on 1-year deals now. And then see where he wants to go with his career.
Roll-off issues for Febvre in a second moto as well, which he pointed to as a reason why he was somewhat powerless to stop Herlings. Although looking at the lap times from lap 8 to lap 16, so in the complete second half of the race, Herlings was faster than Febvre on every single lap, and the roll-off issues didn't occur until lap 11 or 12. So that kind of
Is he still using Pro Grip?
Yep.
One of the very few Pro Grip goggles. I mean, he's been with them for years.
Febvre is a poster child for European looks with shot gear, Pro Grip goggles, just one helmet, city boots, I think, or Gurney, I can't remember. But either way, he is just in a world where MXGP has got more Americanized, Herlings in Fox gear and whatever else. Febvre is holding strong. I mean, even Jonass is in TLD now. Even his teammate has moved with the time somewhat. Tim, quickly, we touched on him. Big crash on Saturday, of course. He was beat up from that, and understandably so. You could go down a complete tangent of whether that crash should have happened, what it meant for the flyaways and allowing wildcards, but we don't have time. It's round 1. If this was round 17, that would be a whole podcast. Not today. It was fine. I would honestly give his whole debut a 5 out of 10. I understand he was banged up.
A bit more than that.
Practices on Saturday, I didn't see anything that really excited me. Perhaps...
The second moto salvaged a GP. I mean, if he was going backwards or just not moving forwards, I would say, that's a 5 out of 10. But there were signs there, Lewis. And also the fact that Renault got the whole shot second moto means that the Yamaha is not as crap out of the gate as it has been in recent seasons. So if Geyser can get that element sorted, then he should be a bit more prominent in the coming GPs.
Yeah, okay, this is bold, and this isn't going to do me any favours, but I've got to talk with my heart rather than my head and my...
Right.
And Jiminy Cricket has told me that my job is to speak my truth on this podcast, and that's what I'm going to do.
How many children's films do you watch?
Well, I haven't referenced Pixar in a long time, Adam.
I know, but this is Pinocchio. I mean, when did they make that? In 1956 or something?
Jiminy Cricket is more just a universal figure, isn't he? Like...
okay. Well, it's like Mike Wachowski perhaps is the latest version of Jiminy Cricket.
It's Mike Wazowski. Put some respect on his name. If you're going to come on a podcast, Adam, at least have your facts in line, yeah?
Yes, names, pronunciation's not my forte.
You picked Geyser as your title favourite, and clearly you're sticking with it. After my... Argentina experience, you can tell I'm nervous. I'm putting Febvre up in my ranks of title contenders, and therefore I'm dropping Tim from 3rd to 4th. Coenen and Herlings still 1A and 1B. Febvre has gained credit. It's more so a reaction to Febvre gaining credit in my eyes than dissing Tim. But that is where my leaderboard has shuffled somewhat.
Well, if you... Imagine if we re-ran the Argentine GP and you had Febvre and Geyser in a 1-to-1 duel for victory, who would you bet on? Because I would be going maybe with Tim.
No, Febvre was really good the whole time. And he was feisty as well, because did you see his, the cheek of it, his angry gesture to Jeffrey in time practice?
No, I missed that. What did he do? Did he wave his fist at him?
Jeffrey loosely, I'm not just saying this because it was Jeffrey. He was barely in the way, but he was in the way for a brief second. And Febvre looked behind and was giving it multiple hand raises, and it all got quite animated for the first time practice of the season. And then, of course, in the same session, Febvre actually had quite a big crash. Not in the same realm as Geysers, but on his own, he hit the dirt reasonably hard, I would say. So just a couple of Febvre highlights. You mentioned Renault, and I do want to say, after talking him up in a preview, I do like his chances of having a bit of a renaissance season now. Again, I don't think he's going to be world champion. I don't think he's going to win a lot, but I do think he will find his place again with some consistency.
He might not even be top French rider in MXGP. I'm not talking down on Febvre at all, Lewis. I agree with you that he cannot be discounted from this championship battle whatsoever. I just think there's a lot more mystery surrounding Geyser at the moment. But as for Renault, he also has that kind of carrot on a string, if you like, with Geyser being in the same morning as him. Not only does Renault have to show that he is, an MXGP protagonist, but he has to, go against a 5-time world champion in this discipline. So he's got like a double motivation, and that's also going to be something that determines his future, I think, in the sport.
Yeah, without doubt. You mentioned Coenen. I honestly think he was lucky to get 5th overall. I felt like he was less in the picture than that. His post-race comment in the KTM PR couldn't have confused me more, as the same rings true for his Instagram post. Because did you see his story where he posted photos of his eyes?
I haven't seen a picture of his eyes, no.
He posted a photo of his eyes and said, "This is what happened." I can't see anything on the eyes. It may as well just be a regular portrait. It's certainly nothing similar to Vlaanderen Redbud 2018 Motocross of Nations. But I'm still a bit confused as to whether this was the result of a rock or dirt, because in the KTM PR, he made it sound like it just kind of materialized on Saturday night out of nowhere. So was it out of nowhere, or was it inflicted by some sort of track incident? I don't know. I'm very confused.
Yeah. Who knows? I mean, it might just be an eye infection as well. Maybe not necessarily any part of the track or something that got inside, but it did blunt his challenge for the podium. I expected him to be a bit better, and I think his start was okay. He was not slack out of the gate. That wasn't a weakness. Maybe it's just like a very measured first outing from the KTM man.
Yeah, and maybe that's what we all wanted to see, so we should be applauding it. There is a little
especially
bit...
from his brother.
We'll get to that in our 4-minute MX2 segment. I don't know. I don't believe in this theory, but it did cross my mind. So again, in the interest of podcasting, I'm going to relay it here. His somewhat dip towards the end of last season, I think I was responsible for this talk, but maybe not. I think I theorised on this podcast that it coincided with the return of Herlings and Geyser, and perhaps there was some sort of connection there. And to be honest, after the lack of highlights in Argentina, my mind drifted back there and going, you know what, this is the first time he started a season with all of these big names. Maybe that does impact him a little bit. Maybe he still needs to go through that process of, I'm beating Jeffrey Herlings, I'm beating Tim Geyser and whatnot.
Yes. We missed also Isaac Gifting, we missed Kai de Wolf. There were some different names in the gate with Andrea Adamo and obviously Vialle. Yes, 2025 did miss Jorge Prado and, the various kind of injury issues or whatever. With Jeffrey Herlings starting the season late meant that Coenen, maybe had premature star billing, but he justified it by the results, didn't he? And it was an emphatic sort of debut season. I do wonder now if in this sophomore campaign, could there be more turbulence in terms of finding a more consistent form? He's definitely got tougher opposition, let's put it that way. There's probably less chance of him being able to drop the ball on occasions or suffer sort of, freak physical problems like he did in Argentina and still manage to get a trophy out of a weekend.
Yeah, he was racing blind, as he said, but when he was battling with Adamo, I forget who made the pass or what direction it was going, I just watched him battle with Adamo and I was like, so is this a testament to the level of MX2? Because, of course, when he left MX2, he was somewhat superior, but, he was still being matched by De Wolf and his competitors. So was Coenen actually not that amazing last year, and he just was waiting for his MX2 peers to join him at the same level? I guess was the question mark that was hovering over my head.
Yeah, your point's great because, you're trying to make the link between the drop in form. I mean, let's be honest, it was a blip at most, with the big guns coming back towards the end of 2025 MXGP, but now he's facing all the big guns straight away, apart from, De Wolf, of course. I mean, when those two actually get on track, on equal terms again, that's going to be particularly juicy. Yeah, who knows, Lewis? I mean, he's re-signed that contract with KTM. The future could lie in MXGP. It could lie in some SMX appearances, and also maybe at some point this year he starts to think about Supercross. It'd be really curious to chart the focus of Lucas Coenen, and what kind of results he can produce as we go forward.
Yeah, because it has been heavily rumoured, or I want to say it's even true, that he will be racing some nationals this year. Although it's dumb, because a couple of weeks ago in the American paddock, everyone's like, yep, even some KTM people, yep, they're racing nationals on off weekends because they're going to race SMX. That's the plan. And I'm stood there like, guys, SMX clashes with MXGP. Like, they're not racing SMX. They can't do that. So I don't know if there's actually any truth to these rumours, or if there's just people being excited and being like, yeah, that's a great plan, without actually looking into it. But you have better information from KTM, I think, than I do. So you should dig into the fact that there are certainly accelerators for 2026 that would put them in America in 2027. And I know that the KTM team is essentially planning their roster for 2027 with the mind of, we need to find room for the Coenens. So I'd be curious to know what those accelerators are exactly. So maybe we could look into that for the next podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it also hinges so much on the situation, doesn't it? Injury, whether someone like Sacha Coenen thinks he's ready to transition into, 250 SX as well as, MX. He's not going to be on a 450, is he? So, it's I think it's one of those things that's hard to deduce. But what year was it, Lewis, when Herlings was injured and then there was talk of him coming back and he was going to race the outdoors instead of coming back to MXGP?
22.
Because 22, that nearly happened, but he wasn't quite fit enough after the surgery on his foot, or his ankle, if I remember.
Yeah, he needed another surgery, didn't he?
Yeah, it was all going to line up and he was going to do it. So in theory, let's say, hopefully not, Lucas Coenen, has a training injury and misses half a dozen, MXGP events, gets closer to the nationals. Do they make the switch earlier? There's nothing really left for him to do in MXGP, but then also he is Red Bull KTM Factory Racing's Grand Prix leader over here. So therefore, if he suddenly disappears to do a full summer in the US and leaves Adamo, say, just to ride the KTM 450 SXF prototype, then that's that. I don't think that would really fit well in KTM's racing program plans.
Yeah, what do you know about? So there is a KTM 450 prototype in MXGP. I'm kind of in the dark on this.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they're running it, but
I think Adamo is
soon.
on
I think there's
the chassis. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a new spec coming because it's part of the next generation. They're coming to the end of the current generation cycle.
Yeah, we need to dig into that as well. A lot of KTM stuff to dig into, even without Herlings there. Who would have thought? Let's hustle this thing along quickly. Adamo was impressive. I think as impressive as we had perhaps theorised. The results don't give him credit. I do want to stop on Paul's Jonass for a second, because without that second turn crash in the second running of the second moto, he very easily could have been third overall, fourth overall, I think at worst fifth overall. And just using the eye test, I felt like from seeing him in time practice, he looked so much more comfortable, so much more aggressive, so much feistier. All the superlatives can be added to Jonass because he just looked like a different guy. And I'm happy for him. And I'm also quite excited to see where his trajectory takes him coming up.
The biggest challenge for Paul is not to do with the bike. It's not to do with results. His biggest obstacle is establishing a pattern because he's either fast or he's uncompetitive. He's either fit or he's injured. He never doesn't get a sequence of races going where he can like actually build some confidence and carry some momentum. So that has to be his number one target, whether that is a top six guy or a top eight guy or a podium contender, who knows? But he has to really get that basis going. I think that's essential for him in 2026. Encouraging signs, like you say. And just before we skip over Adamo, I agree it was pretty good. His starts were all right. I think he'll be disappointed with that first moto and the way that he dropped back. But then, arm pump, handling the 450, the conditions that the condition that the track was in, it was a real educational baptism for him. I think he'll take a lot from that GP in terms of what he needs to do in terms of setup, and then also how physically demanding the 450 is going to be different to the 250 that he was racing.
I think you can find similarities between the reason that Adamo and Vialle are both so good on 450s. I think they aren't too dissimilar in their approach to racing, their technique, and the fact that the all-out style of MX2 250 racing maybe is less so their forte. I don't know. But yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes with Adamo. I really am. The problem is he's vying for a position in the top 5 along with 12 other riders, as is Paul Jonass. Yeah. So it may not always look as positive as it may actually be in reality, but hopefully we can guide you along and give you that valuable context. Thankful that Mattia Guadagnini was okay after a hard crash in the second moto. He was actually fairly promising across the weekend, but he needs to stop crashing. This has been consistent across Ducati, Husqvarna, so he just needs to stay upright, similar to what you were saying about Paul's, I guess. Also, happy that Vlaanderen is okay. He crashed prior to the restart of the second moto and hit his leg quite hard. But, of course, he made the restart, so he's okay, but could have quite easily gone.
Why was Vlaanderen pretty good on the Ducati and Jeremy just wasn't anywhere?
Wow, Adam.
Don't say everything's good, everything's happy.
I do think that a fundamental problem, I think the Ducati is a handful. I think we've heard that consistently across multiple guys, including Guadagnini last year. And I do believe that Jeremy's size doesn't help him when it comes to compensating for some of the bike's issues, if you want to call them that. I would also say I don't think Bonacorsi or Vlaanderen were as good as they were last year. So clearly there is some problem there. And a little bit of a thing, which, again, we don't really have time for, but I'll touch on it briefly. So Caroli went to America last year, raced with a factory connection setup and raved about it. As a result of that, Factory Connection were doing the MXGP team's suspension for this year. You would have noticed in photos from Red Sand and whatnot that the forks had Showa and Factory Connection stickers on there. Then the first pre-season race at Alghero, photos on Saturday had Factory Connection stickers. Photos on Sunday, the Factory Connection stickers were gone, and they've not returned since. The version I got, not from Jeremy, he wasn't at Alghero, you can check for fact, that is our alibi, it wasn't Jeremy. The version I got is that Wilvo, we'll continue to call it that just to make it easy on the listeners, they have their own suspension dyno in-house, they have their own suspension guy in-house. They wanted to go in a slightly different direction and try some of their own ideas, and Factory Connection said, well, take our stickers off then. Which I think points to the fact there is maybe still some need for some cohesion between both sides obviously. Of Ducati. Yeah, and I will get more clarity on the situation for the next podcast. Again, it's round 1. We could be sat here for 4 hours. But that's kind of the headline of the matter. And quite an interesting one, I think.
But do you agree that the Ducati should be more competitive? But in the second season, we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. It's still a brand new bike. It's still very young in terms of its Grand Prix racing journey. But I would have thought, Vlaanderen wasn't a million miles away, but Jeremy was just at the back of the pack, and especially in Argentina, I think that was indicative of the state they're in when it comes to maybe the base settings or showing that the bike can do something. Yes, MXGP is arguably more stacked than it will ever be. We're not going to get this amount of fit riders, race ready even without the two absentees that we mentioned, for probably for the rest of the season. Going into round two, we might be lucky to have the same full gate that we had, in Bariloche. But, I still would have thought the Ducati would be a little bit more in there.
Yes, and perhaps, again, I think Calvin was fine. Bonacorsi, of course, I think had a big crash. I forget what session. But Calvin was fine. It wasn't bad. I just wouldn't say it was good. I don't know. How would you classify Calvin's appearance? Anonymous? I don't know.
No, I mean, he was top 10. Was he in the first moto?
Eighth.
I kind of, yeah. So that's what I expect at least. But I would have expected that also from Jeremy and from Bonacorsi. So there's obviously still quite some work to do.
Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if some of the issues were linked back to roughest track that people have ever seen in MXGP, the struggles that the team had in the sand last year. I think it still rings true that the Ducati Desmo 450 is far, far, far more capable on hard-packed tracks. And I think you'll see that when we get there. We don't really know what Spain's going to offer with an all-new track, but I do believe that we will see a dramatic uptick, especially in the results of Jeremy, when you get to those venues. For now, I don't think he'll do it, but I would love to get Kevin Strybos on this podcast because he is, of course, the Wilvo test rider. And
it's his fault.
No, I like Kevin. If I didn't like Kevin, it would be. No, I'm joking. I will say that I would be curious. We need to get either Jeremy or Kevin. What we'll do is we'll start a group chat and we'll say one of you has to do a podcast. Figure it out amongst yourselves, because equally, I think Ducati need to do a bit of PR work here as well. I think whether it's Paolo, equally. But I will say that in the transition from Maddie Racing to Wilvo, Strybos did start. They went out and bought their own Ducati Desmo 450. Didn't even get it from the factory. And Strybos started with stock and added. And I would be really curious to learn more about where they found some of the fundamental issues and where they maybe saw differences from last year.
And what upgrades are Ducati bringing? Apart from meddling with the suspension, do they have a new chassis? Are they trying a new sort of subframe, swing arm? That's also, I'd like to know more for the second year in MXGP. Like you say, it's a bit of a mystery. Maybe you could you can understand them being a little bit kind of starry-eyed of what's happening in Supercross. That's obviously a brand new adventure. If MXGP has taken a little bit of a backseat in terms of attention or marketing emphasis or whatever, then I get that. But certainly when we get back to Europe, and as we mentioned in the preview, there will be a lot of people looking at those bikes still. They're still very exotic. They're still a curio in the MXGP paddock, so they need to get it sorted out. We kind of glossed over Ruben Fernandez a little bit. He finished ahead of people like, Paul's Jonas and of course, any of the Ducati riders. Good start again. He is a little bit the third wheel in HRC Lewis, but, he wasn't that far away. He's going to be another sort of top 10 mixer, isn't he?
Yeah, his standout moment was his fierce run into turn one in the initial second moto, where it looks like he pushed Jeffrey off track, and I have no idea how Jeffrey emerged still in the running. But Fernandez overshadowed, of course, and I think, unfortunately, that will be a consistent trend across 2026. But as a standalone performance, very good, because you've got to think, this time last year, we didn't have Herlings, we didn't have Vialle, so that's a fourth overall in last year's field, which is incredible for Fernandez. Perhaps not incredible, that's a bit far, but a good, great ride. So, again, context matters with the state of the MXGP field.
And round two is in Spain. We shouldn't discount the fact that we have a competitive Spaniard as part of the pack. And reading the nationalities of the top 10 in Argentina, we had Dutch, French, Slovenian, Belgian, Spanish, French, Italian, French, and Latvian. So anything that sort of gets in there and fights the French or the Benelux, then good. Happy to see it.
The French are on fire. Jeffrey was the spoiler in a France party.
Well, finishing ahead of Paul's Jonas as well was 10th was Thibaut Benistan, and that wasn't such a bad debut.
you could quite literally say that Jeffrey turned the French party upside down. Get it? Because the Dutch flag is a French flag, just tilted, like upside down, kind of. Get it?
Yes. Okay.
Really? I felt like that was incredible, intelligent.
It wasn't that amusing.
No,
it was all right.
I don't know. I'm just trying to bring something different to this podcast. So on our to-do list, KTM, Ducati. Congrats to Ducati, by the way, on their Red Bull deal. I don't know if they could have got the Red Bull logo any bigger on the shroud, but they really managed to shoehorn it in there. Somewhat of a last-minute deal. I know it was kind of in the works a month or so ago. Also, congrats to Jeremy for doing a photo shoot in gear for the first time in 2026. That is the level of progress that we're looking to see.
Oh, okay.
Did you not notice that in their initial photo shoot?
No.
The one they did in Sardinia. So obviously Vlanderen and Bonacorsi are under a team deal with Alpine Stars, and Jeremy's not. He's got his own Fox deal. And in the initial photo shoot, with the riders stood side by side and whatnot, Vlanderen and Bonacorsi are fully decked out in their gear, and Jeremy's just wearing a Ducati hoodie. And it looked horrendous.
I didn't notice that.
It looked horrendous. So thank God the Red Bull deal happened, forced them to do a new photo shoot, and now Jeremy has some adequate photo shoot images. All is right in the world after all.
We talk about Fernandez being the third wheel HRC, then poor Jeremy's stuck out there like a sore thumb in Ducati. I really hope it's going to be a long trip for him coming back from, or it was a long trip for him coming back from Argentina, but I hope he's going to be happier by Spain. Yeah, I mean,
I picked him as a disappointment in the preview show, and it's the most disappointing win I've ever had.
Lewis, did you like Alberto Ferrato's attempt to utterly destroy the start gate?
I enjoyed more so this message that I got from someone in the paddock. He will remain nameless. It really tickled me. Gate should never fold over like that, but then again, Ferrato has a bit more of an average mass to push it through. really tickled me.
Big man Ferrato. Can I just say, I really missed that there was no MXGP live tweeting.
No, there was.
No, there wasn't.
There was, Adam.
I checked that thing a few times, thinking, okay, what was MXGP saying? And I just didn't see any.
We'll tackle that at the end of the podcast.
Right.
But there was some unhappiness in the paddock about the delay with the red flag for the Ferrato gate incident. Now, ultimately, my understanding is the red flag was thrown because Ferrato hitting the gate caused Beniston's gate not to fall. So that was the genesis of the red flag, but it took them 2 laps. And supposedly, there was a bit of confusion about whether it should be thrown. And the first lap around, the FIM guy on the finish line had the red flag in his hand. But it did feel, I guess it was 2 laps officially. The results are banished the way that MXGP system works. There's no record. I guess it was 2 laps, but it felt a hell of a lot longer. So that caused some of the, a little bit, not controversy, it was just a little bit of a question mark, let's say, in the paddock. MX2?
MX2. Längenfelder, the man.
100th GP, 10th GP win, first race with a number 1. The OCD of the ones and zeros there is
very
quite
binary.
Something. Yes, that's the word I was looking for. I am very encouraged by Längenfelder. He's going to win the title going away. And congrats to him. This is a Tim Geyser 2025 sort of declaration. He may win the title by May. And yeah, that's going to be MX2 in 2026. And I don't see how anyone could say otherwise.
Liam Everts.
See, so Liam was under the weather. I was somewhat discouraged by his practice times, qualifying race, first moto, which he crashed in the first turn and actually did do well to come through. And then the second moto was a complete turnaround, and I was suddenly like, okay, so the Liam that we expect to see is there. But still, Längenfelder, I don't know if this is just the effect of the number 1 and it kind of wires my brain differently, but did you not feel that Längenfelder just operated with a little more confidence, power,
Yes.
He seemed
Superiority.
more assertive than I think I've ever seen him in the past. Even in unlapping himself from Sacha Coenen in the qualifying race, that was a statement, I felt. And to be honest, with him doing that, I felt very high on his chances after the qualifying race, just because I think you don't do that unless you really believe you're the man in this class.
Simon's not afraid of putting a wheel anywhere, and I think the way he's got his whole setup done now, in terms of where he's based, of course, he made that switch during 2025, not being based in Italy, more at home, and switching from the Ducati side of Red Bull KTM to the Austrian side. I mean, he's in his prime as an MX2 rider, Lewis. So, I mean, I say Liam Everts just because I would like to not see Simon win the championship by round 12. But, you know, based on the adversity that he faced from Saturday and breaking what his wheel spokes in the qualifying race, which meant he went to the gate, in 22nd?
Yep.
You know, this was something else. I do feel slightly vindicated. I mean, I may have been way off with my estimation of Jeffrey Herlings, but being able to talk about the Triumph MX2 boys, I think I was slightly nearer the mark on that one, because Camden, McLellan and Guillem Ferrez having strong races, appearing, you know, in the top three, Ferrez especially, was pretty good. And then Sacha Coenen does Sacha Coenen.
Yeah, do we know about Sacha's leg? He, of course, crashed out of turn 2 in a second moto, rode off, but was pointing and holding his leg quite dramatically, so it seemed like there was a lot of concern.
Was it his leg or the bike? I mean, I know post-race he said he was okay, and already thinking about Spain, so there was no kind of worry or need to get it checked out.
That's good then. Yeah, no concern then. I think he definitely was pointing towards his leg, but maybe not. And in the KTM fold, you may have heard Längenfelder say in his post-race interview, thank you to KTM for their trust, did he say? Their belief?
Yeah. Something to do with setup. I mean, maybe also, again, allowing him to use his own program. And in terms of selection of components, I guess... Maybe something to do with... go on.
Well, some asking around, it seems that he's on some sort of stock shock from WP, which is actually all of the talk with WP in America last year and whatnot. Quite a testament that in America they've got this all-new system that's factory and everyone's raving about it. And in MXGP, one of their guys is like, yeah, the stock stuff's great. I think all around, you're kind of like, if you're WP, you're just... putting up wins, aren't you, in every single column? But an interesting subtlety of Simon's pre-season choices. I mean, it's a little insight, isn't it, into how in the off-season these riders run through the various offerings in each component, and are like, yeah, I like that one actually on this occasion.
And if riders are saying that Argentina was one of the roughest tracks they found in quite some time, the fact that Simon's going for a stock shock, which I think you can see in some of the photos.
Yeah.
Then that's I mean, that's a great advocation. Is that a word for advocate for WP?
Yeah, if it can survive Simon in Argentina, I think it'll be okay for you at your local track. After all, so you can rest easy now. That's been confirmed, thank God. Jonass Racialis. I endeavour to figure this out at some point in my life. Maybe when he's a 450 champion or whatnot, but. Incredible.
I was studying the Paul Mailing School pronunciation during the broadcast, and I think it's like racialist is what he says, something like that. But then again, like I said earlier, Lewis, pronunciation, I happily hold both hands up to being quite inept when it comes to that.
I even had Jonass send me a voice note with like an exact breakdown of how to say it, and I can't do it still. I think it's more of a memory issue at this point, because I do have...
Can we just call him JR?
We'll just call him the Latvian 1. No, he'll be Latvian 2 because he's younger. But no, incredible. And you know what? The Hutton Metal team had a lot of issues last year. The new sound rules in MXGP, I think the Yamaha MX2 program found it most difficult to adapt to that. So for them to take both whole shots, that is a massive testament to the turnaround in the off-season. I would argue that in the Yamaha publicity stakes, the MX2 showing was far more beneficial, advantageous than the MXGP showing. And the MXGP one was good. My point being that the MX2 one was that great.
Yeah, we have to... I mean, it's a completely different level of competitiveness in the class. But I think it was very encouraging, like you say, for Yamaha. I think it was also encouraging for the category that we have these sort of new names pushing through. And we didn't really see that much from Mattis Vallin or from Valerio Lata either. So there's still some new potential to be harvested there, I think, in terms of names coming through.
Yes, without doubt. It's a little bit of a... What would you say? It's a little bit of a, like, bear with us class.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it could be Simon running away with it, like you say, but I think there'll be some surprises. Was there anything that surprised you about MXGP and getting the championship back underway, Lewis?
So I've said this in multiple places. I look at the MXGP results and nothing stands out to me as either a big surprise or a big disappointment. Yes, in the moment, Tom Vialle was a huge surprise. But now as I sit here and I'm just thinking about things, I don't know if there's a real standout Jonass I would lean to, Vialle I would lean to. But apart from that, I'm not sure I've got a massive, strong opinion on a surprise or disappointment. But what about you?
I mean, generally, just, that GP racing was back.
Okay, so you forced my hand with this, Adam. You wanted to talk about the tweets, so here we go. Here we go. Now, they live tweet...
We need to get questions from listeners as well on this show.
Well...
We need to dedicate 10 minutes at the end of each show to queries from listeners.
But Adam, we're kind of rushing ourselves out the door as it is. So...
I know. I mean, we said we wouldn't do a 90-minute podcast, but here we are.
Well, it's 1 hour, 15, 31 seconds at the moment, if you want an exact total. Please hold while I find my favourite tweet from the weekend. This is a standalone tweet.
Right.
As answer, Febvre makes for Ove on Adamo for third.
Oh.
What are we answering?
Right, okay.
That's mean. I'm not going to do that one. We had a lot of world champ, but instead of world with a D, it was world with an F. It's a Welf champ. Wolf champ. Perhaps
Wolf
longing.
champ.
Perhaps either A, longing for the return of Kyle Wolf, or B, offering an insight that MXGP is scripted and De Wolf will be world champion after all.
Well, we've all had butterfingers, Lewis. We can't be perfect.
No. I will say...
I know. I don't know why I said that, but yes.
I will say that when I live tweeted...
Let's not get petty.
No, that's just funny. I was just being funny. But when I live tweeted, when I saw a tweet like that, I deleted it immediately and then redid it.
Right.
I will say that was kind of my... Because I will admit, like, it does happen, but...
Yeah.
I would press send without reading it, and then as it's sending, I would read it, and then I would delete it. But yeah, no, they were live tweeting, despite your
I must have
lack of awareness
out completely. Yeah, I did check, and I thought, oh, it's not happening.
Maybe they've blocked you.
But, yeah, perhaps. I wanted to see some. I kind of wrote about this again, so apologies if people have, if you're one of the 16 people that did read the column online. I did want to see some new stuff from MXGP, so I was a little bit disappointed there was nothing really fresh. I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a fantastic post-race video feature coming. I don't know. And obviously not being on the ground as well, I hold my hands up and say, look, I'm not privy to the budget or the organization or the structure, the vision that Infront currently have. If you're on the ground,
you're not going to be privy to the budget anyway.
Well, no, because you can tell, can't you, by, because usually Infront do have very hard-working people. They're doing the work of 3 people, at Grand Prix events. So I know it's not easy, but then it just needs some vision, some investment, some strategy from someone to say, listen, this year we're going to focus on this. Let's make this YouTube show or this Instagram series or this TikTok scheme. Let's really pump it up, shape it, brand it, give something new to try and entice new fans. Apparently MXGP is very proud of its young demographic. So why are we still sticking to this same format for TV production that's been there for 15, 20 years, it feels? I just wanted to see something kind of fresh and new. And I know I've harped on about the drone stuff. I think that's a really fantastic dynamic area of MXGP. But where's kind of the insight? I mean, I know Supercross is a different animal, but if you look and watch the online presence of Supercross or the presentation, then you have numerous pundits ex-riders, experts, analysis. There's, even in MXGP again, I know it's not very relevant, but they have like a dartfish analysis tool on some TV broadcasters now. There's so much untapped potential there. Someone needs to grab sort of the presentation aspect of MXGP by the neck and say, guys, let's do something different. Let's make motocross, stand out for this particular feature, because we've got room to do it.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I think that's even further down the road. First port of call, we just need to latch onto our narratives correctly. We just need to establish some storylines and lean into those, and then we can look at those sort of advancements. I don't understand how we're still doing 2 pre-race interviews in exactly the same format. Like, that baffles me. We can't even switch to 1 or 3, or we 2 pre-race interviews has been what I have seen since I was 6 years old. Like, I don't know any different.
How difficult would it be to get more trackside stuff with Lisa in pit lane?
I presume there was technical difficulties.
Even if it's just audio. Yeah, but even if it's just audio, I mean, you can say, Paul can go down, so she's in the pit lane, she's talking to people, finding out what's happened, get an update or whatever. Why has Andrea Adamo dropped back to 11th place? Even you don't need to see it, you could hear it. And if you can't do that, then why maybe the total investment in the live TV production needs to be reassessed as well.
Yes, I will agree with that point that in the first MX2 moto, 8 minutes in, Paul was theorising that Everts must have crashed in turn 1. And it was a little bit weird that Lisa is in pit lane. So, can Lisa not find that out and then communicate that to Paul? Because all you have to do is tap the mechanic and go, did he crash in first turn? They go, yeah. And they go, okay. But I don't know. I'm trying to be nice, Adam. It's round 1. We've got a long season to go. And
no, it's not about being nice. No, but it's not about being nice or friendly. It's just evaluating the product. And, I think it's a good question.
They value your opinion a lot more than mine, so I'm trying to just fall in behind you. Look, we've got to go, but I just remembered quite a pressing point. Do we have 4 to 5 minutes, or maybe 3 minutes if we can be quick?
3 minutes. Okay. Sorry.
So
I know that's unbearable for people listening to podcasts and having people hurrying it along, but we are running a bit late.
So Giacomo posted on Instagram after the event saying, we decided to change everything this year and have a fresh start that would allow us to return to winning world championships. We chose 2 absolute champions for this new challenge, and yesterday's double podium and double red plate in Argentina confirmed that we weren't wrong. Champions don't make mistakes when the moment counts. And a lot of people have reacted to this saying that's quite scathing when you've just had Tim Geyser on your team. But the more I hear, I think I was accurate in saying that 2024 really hurt the Geyser HRC relationship, because I think Giacomo and HRC felt like that was Geyser's championship for the taking, and he missed critical moments to pounce, be aggressive, whatever else. And I think that was where the fractures started, because they lost a little bit of belief. And I think that statement, if you want to call it that, all but confirms it. Your reaction?
Yes. Also, maybe Giacomo's has been a bit euphoric in what was a pretty dreamy start for the team. Yeah. I mean, Giacomo is one of those great people that has such a forthright opinion. You ask him something and he gives you a dead straight answer, and there's no messing around with it. But yeah, that seems to me a little bit more a celebration of the present rather than reflection on the past. But we can only speculate, Lewis, as to how the HRC Geyser relationship was. I think it was just one of those things that ran in natural course. Yeah, there could be disappointment, like you say, about 2024. I think that's a really good take. But then 2025, Geyser was doing the business until, just that slightly wider line in Switzerland. If he had won the World Championship last year, how would MXGP look now? All ifs and buts, of course, but HRC are just in an immense position at the moment, like we said.
Yes, congrats to Honda HRC PETRONAS. Complete domination, fastest or winning every single session, from warm-up to free practice to the overall to the championship standings, where they have 2 championship leaders, Herlings and Vialle, of course, tied on 50 points apiece. What are the MXGP rules? Do we have 2 red plates or 1 red plate? I forget.
Doesn't it go down to the last? I mean, Herlings will have it for winning the last.
Yeah,
moto.
I think Herlings does have it, but for some reason, I always presume. I think it's because America does 2 red plates, so I always presume that's the way to go. But I don't think MXGP operates in that manner. But never mind. Thank you, Adam. Any final thoughts?
No, thank you, Lewis. It's been interesting doing two shows in 1 week with our preview as well. And now we're going to have to wait over a week till we go to Spain. I don't know anything about Almonte. Let's hope it's a little bit better than Kozar. But yeah, back to European shores.
Well, buckle up, Adam, because I have a couple of ideas now for shows on the off week. So you may be getting a bat signal at some point. Thank you, everyone, for listening to this episode of the MXGP podcast show. An hour and 24 minutes, but truthfully, we could have gone for 4 hours. Round one was incredibly interesting. There are so many storylines. There's a lot of information that I still have in my pocket that we're going to store for round two because there simply isn't enough time in the world. Or next week, where maybe we'll be able to get one of those special guests we theorized would be interesting to talk to. Come on down, Kevin. We can talk about 2004 Locket or 2005 or all of your Lockets. They were great. Thank you, everyone, for listening once more. We will see you real soon with another podcast. Get in touch on Twitter or wherever else if you've got any MXGP questions or comments, because we would love to talk about it some more. But for now, that's a podcast, and we'll see you real soon.